You ever wonder how some of the best games ever made just fail? Like critically praised, visually stunning, insanely fun, and still somehow bomb at launch? Well, today we're diving into that mystery. These are the hidden gems, the forgotten masterpieces, the games that had everything except the sales. But trust me, by the end of this video, you're gonna have a list of games you need to play. So, let's break it all down.
Let us deal with these rebels!
Let's kick things off with a game that had no business flopping. I'm talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. This game had it all: tight combat, hilarious banter, a killer soundtrack, and a story that actually hits you in the feels. It nailed the tone of the movies without trying to copy-paste them. You'd think a Marvel title like this would sell like crazy, right? But nope, it tanked. But why? Honestly, timing was brutal. It dropped not long after Marvel's Avengers left a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and a lot of people just assumed it was more of the same. On top of that, the marketing barely made a ripple. Most people didn't even know it was out. It's wild because the folks who did play it won't shut up about how good it is. So, word of mouth kept it alive way past launch, and it went from forgotten release to underrated gem real quick. Even if you're not a Marvel fan, give it a shot. It's got heart, it's got humor, and it deserved way more love than it got.
Come on, put him down! All right, almost there!
If you're into horror games, there's no way you haven't at least heard of Alien Isolation. It's one of those titles that stick with you, not because of cheap jump scares, but because it makes you feel hunted every second you're playing. The game dropped with serious potential. Over 2 million copies sold in the first year is no small feat. But for Sega? Yeah, they still called it a failure. Expectations were sky high, and Alien Isolation, for all its brilliance, didn't quite hit the numbers they wanted. But here's the thing, this wasn't your average horror shooter. Alien Isolation is pure, slow-burn survival terror. It's built for fans who love the original movie vibes, the silence, the tension, the dread, and that's not everyone. For casual players, the pacing felt slow, and some reviews even called it repetitive. But for horror fans, this game nailed it. The atmosphere is insane. Every hallway, every shadow, it all feels like a trap. The alien isn't just a set piece, it learns from you and adapts. You're never safe, and that's the beauty of it. On top of that, the sound design is unreal. Every hiss, creak, and echo pulls you deeper into the fear. It's not perfect, but Alien Isolation is easily one of the most immersive horror experiences out there. If you like your games with a bit of panic and a lot of suspense, this one deserves a spot on your playlist.
This could require my attention. Is anybody there? We really shouldn't be here. Calm down.
I feel like I've been hit by a freight train.
Most people have no idea this game even exists. And honestly, that's a crime. Alpha Protocol is one of those games that tried to do something bold and paid the price for it. Released back in 2010, this third-person RPG shooter hybrid let you step into the shoes of Michael Thornton, a government agent with a license to do whatever it takes. And I mean whatever. The real magic of Alpha Protocol wasn't in the shooting, which, let's be honest, felt a little rough around the edges. It was all about the choices, as every decision you made, who you trusted, who you betrayed, who lived, who didn't, shaped the world around you in wild, unpredictable ways. One conversation could flip your whole mission. That hostage you saved might become your ally later, or a liability. That's what made it special. You were living through a spy thriller where nothing was ever black and white. But here's the thing, it launched a buggy mess. Expectations were sky high because it came from Obsidian, the same minds behind Fallout New Vegas. But instead of blowing up, it kind of blew up in the wrong way. Broken systems, awkward combat, and poor polish scared off a lot of people. Despite that, the ideas underneath were rock solid. If it had launched a few years later, cleaned up, maybe with a better budget and some modern polish, Alpha Protocol could have been a classic. It barely sold 700,000 copies, and Sega expected way more. The game disappeared from Steam in 2019 and only resurfaced in mid-2024, finally updated to run on Windows 11. If you like branching narratives, spy dramas, and games that actually react to your choices, go give it a shot. Just lower your expectations for the gunplay.
Ah, there you are, Mike. Gotcha.
In 2029, the world's gone sideways. Humans with mechanical upgrades are treated like second-class citizens, forced to live in isolation while society pretends they're the problem. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Mankind Divided could have changed the RPG scene forever. It had everything going for it: a gritty, futuristic world, a story packed with moral choices, and gameplay that actually let you play your way. Stealth, hacking, brute force. You had options, and they all felt legit. But here's the catch. Before the game even dropped, it was already in trouble. The pre-order campaign was a total mess, with tiered rewards that made people furious. It looked like the devs were more focused on squeezing money than delivering a solid experience. And even after they scrapped that system, the damage was done, and trust was gone. Then came launch day, and yeah, it looked amazing, played great, but the story was cut short, like brutally short. You get to the end and it just stops. No real closure, just a big to-be-continued vibe that never actually got continued. Fans felt cheated, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Still, after a few patches and some decent DLCs, the game found its footing. For those who gave it a second chance, it turned into one of the most unforgettable cyberpunk experiences out there. But man, what it could have been if it hadn't stumbled so hard at the start.
Yo, anyone there?
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this video, do me a favor and drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. And if you want to go the extra mile, becoming a channel member helps a ton and gives you early access to all future videos. Thanks for the support, and now, back to the video. Enslaved is one of those games that had heart, soul, and a crazy cool setting, but somehow flew completely under the radar. It came from Ninja Theory, the same team that later made Hellblade, and honestly, you can already see the storytelling talent in this one. You play as Monkey, a tough survivor in a world taken over by rogue machines. He's forced to team up with Trip, a tech-savvy girl who puts a literal slave headband on him so he has no choice but to protect her. Yeah, the setup is wild, but it works. Their chemistry is great, the dialogue feels real, and the motion capture, especially from Andy Serkis as Monkey, is just next level. The world is colorful, broken, and full of danger. Not your typical gray, depressing apocalypse, this one's overgrown with nature and full of personality. But even with all that going for it, the game didn't click with a mainstream audience. It launched with some decent reviews, but sales were way below what the studio needed. They were hoping to pass 1 million units, and it barely got halfway there. The sad part? They had plans for a sequel, but with those numbers, the whole thing got scrapped. Enslaved is now one of those forgotten gems people bring up in Reddit threads, saying, man, you have to try this if you missed it. And they're right. Rise Son of Rome was supposed to be the killer launch title for the Xbox One. A brutal, cinematic trip through ancient Rome with jaw-dropping visuals and some seriously satisfying combat. It had everything to blow people's minds, epic battles, emotional moments, and a full-on Hollywood presentation. But here's the thing, after the initial hype wore off, It didn't take long for players to realize the gameplay was kinda shallow. Cool at first, but pretty repetitive. And once that started to show, word of mouth cooled down fast. Later, when it dropped on PC, it actually found a second life. The modding community picked it up, and a lot of new players gave it a shot thanks to sales and better optimization. People started to appreciate just how gorgeous and underrated it really was. Still, none of that could save its commercial performance. Reports say it only moved around 1.3 million units in 3 years. For a big-budget launch title backed by Microsoft and developed by Crytek, the studio behind the original Crysis, that's rough. No sequel ever came. And honestly, that kinda sucks. Rise may not have been perfect, but games with this level of visual ambition and historical setting are super rare. Let's be real, stealth games owe a lot to Splinter Cell. It set the standard for what it means to be a spy in gaming. Dark corners, silent takedowns, and that iconic 3-lens night vision glow. But something went off the rails with Blacklist. The game didn't bomb, but it didn't hit like the classics. Ubisoft tried to modernize it, adding more action-heavy gameplay to bring in a wider audience. Thing is, fans didn't want that. They wanted the slow, tactical, shadow-dwelling Sam Fisher. What they got felt like Splinter Cell trying to be Call of Duty. And then came the Sunlight missions. Yeah. Stealth in broad daylight. That's like hiding in plain sight with a neon sign over your head. On top of that, they changed Sam's voice actor. For longtime fans, that was the final straw. It felt like the soul of the series had been swapped out. Even though Blacklist sold over 2 million copies, that just didn't cut it for Ubisoft. And since then, nothing. No sequels, no reboots, just radio silence. Well, except for Skull and Bones still floating around out there somehow.
Where are you?
All right, picture this. You've got a wild, colorful, over-the-top open-world game where the rules are simple. Move fast, blow stuff up, and have fun. Sounds like a hit, right? That's what everyone thought about Sunset Overdrive, but when it dropped back in 2014, it barely made a splash. This was one of those rare gems with style, personality, and gameplay that didn't take itself too seriously. It was made by Insomniac Games, yeah, the same folks behind Ratchet and Clank and Spider-Man. You'd think that alone would guarantee attention, but nope. Between almost zero marketing and being locked to one platform, the game just vanished. What's crazy is that Sunset Overdrive aged like fine wine. Its explosive combat, smooth traversal, and wild tone still feel fresh even now, almost 10 years later. A lot of other games from that era look and feel old, but this one? Still a blast. But let's talk numbers. It sold around 1.8 million copies. Not bad on paper, until you hear that the profit was less than $600. Yeah. That's how brutal the gaming industry can be. You don't just need decent sales, you need massive ones just to break even. So, will we ever see a Sunset Overdrive 2? Honestly, probably not. But if you've never played it, you're missing out on one of the most underrated games of the last decade.
How would I know? I'm practically a shut-in after Horror Night, although it makes sense. Once you secure the bottom floor, you have all that living space above you.
See that bus over there? It's filled with sand.
Spec Ops looked like just another generic military shooter. Explosions, guns, desert vibes. On the surface, it screamed just another Call of Duty clone, but that couldn't be further from the truth. This game hits different. What starts as a typical mission turns into a brutal, psychological descent that makes you question everything, your actions, your orders, even your own character. It's not just a war game, it's a gut punch wrapped in bullets and sand. What really held it back was the marketing. They sold it like it was mindless action game, when in reality, it was trying to do something way deeper. And because of that mismatch, a lot of people skipped it, thinking they'd seen it all before. But Spec Ops deserves way more respect. The gameplay is solid, yeah, but it's the story that sticks with you. Raw, uncomfortable, and haunting. If you've never played it, do yourself a favor. This is one of those rare games that actually makes you feel something real.
Heading out! Shit, we got hostiles! Watch out! Hostile down!
Let's talk about one of the biggest recent letdowns in the gaming world, Immortals of Aveum. This game was hyped as a flashy, magic-based first-person shooter, mixing fantasy and action in a way we don't see often. On paper, it sounded like a breath of fresh air. A brand new IP, bold visuals, fast combat, it had all the ingredients for success. But then it dropped, and crickets. Sales flopped hard, and just weeks later, EA laid off nearly half the dev team. The publisher blamed the saturated market, but insiders say the real issue was trying to launch a single-player shooter in a space dominated by multiplayer giants and established franchises. It just didn't stand a chance. Thing is, the game isn't bad. In fact, the combat's actually solid and visually it's stunning. The world is creative and the gameplay loop can be fun for a while. But the story doesn't hit that emotional punch, and the characters are pretty forgettable. After a few hours, it all starts to feel kinda samey. Still, it's one of those games that shows ambition. It tried to be different, and while it didn't stick the landing, Immortals of Aveum proves that even with a massive budget and cool ideas, breaking through today's gaming noise is way harder than it looks. Titanfall 2 could have been a game changer. It had everything going for it: tight shooting, insane movement, epic mech battles, and a single-player campaign that honestly blew people away. No joke, that campaign is still one of the best ever dropped in an FPS. But here's the catch: it launched in the worst possible window, right between Battlefield 1 and COD Infinite Warfare. Yeah, whoever made that call clearly didn't think it through. The game got buried. While the first Titanfall moved around 10 million units, Titanfall 2 barely hit 4. That's not a quality issue. That's bad timing, plain and simple. What's wild is, the game didn't just improve on its predecessor, it perfected it. But because of the crowded release window, tons of people missed out. If you haven't played it yet, fix that. It's not just another shooter, it's one of those rare games that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Let's be real. If you've played Prey, you know how wild it is that this game flopped. We're talking about a sci-fi thriller packed with atmosphere, smart level design, and one of the most unique takes on survival horror out there. But yeah, it totally tanked when it launched. Prey came from Arcane, the same studio behind Dishonored. But while Dishonored got its flowers, Prey barely made a sound. Sales were reportedly down by over half compared to their previous hit. And for a big-budget game, that's brutal. The weird thing is, Prey didn't fail because it was bad. Far from it. The story's layered. The setting is this eerie space station crawling with shape-shifting aliens. And the gameplay gives you real freedom to approach situations however you want. But maybe that was the problem. Too much freedom for folks who just wanted to shoot stuff. It also didn't help that it wasn't tied to a big franchise. No familiar characters, no hype train. Just a new name with a familiar title slapped on it, which confused a lot of people. Still, if you're into games that actually challenge you to think, Prey is worth your time. It's one of those underrated masterpieces that more people deserve to experience. So, which of these underrated gems do you think deserved way more love? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read all of them. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.